Representative Ritter of the 1st District, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the good minority leader for her remarks. I do myself want to say a few thank yous. Also, a little levity to the situation here. Last night, I was jotting notes down, and my wife turns to me and she says, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm writing notes for my wrap-up speech tomorrow." She goes, "Honey, if I were you, I'd be quick and don't blow it." She said, "It's November 1st. She's right. It's always good to have your spouse keep you in check up here. To my caucus, to our caucus, Mr. Speaker, I know you share my sentiments. You guys hung tight in what's been a very, very tough year. We have put our heart and soul into you because you've given it back to us. And I know this has not been easy. I know for many of you, there were times you were ready to go a lot of different ways, and you always stuck with us and you trusted us. And even today, as difficult as this is for some people, the love, the appreciation, the respect is right back at you, and I really do appreciate that. To my constituents in the 1st District, for your patience and your understanding, this has been hard on all of us. And in the grocery store, when you asked me how the budget was going, I always told you we'll get there eventually, and you gave me enough confidence with your nice notes and your thank yous. To the leaders, Senator Duff referred to the windowless room, which sort of sounds like a Stephen King novel that we were trapped in for 3 weeks. But to Senator Looney and Duff, Fasano and Witkos, to my colleagues across the way, Themis and Vinny, I hope you don't mind the first name informality here, because really it was special and it was unique. And to our Speaker, Mr. Speaker, you got handed a tough deck, so to speak, that was dealt to you last November. We all did, upstairs as well. The voters made it very clear that this wasn't going to be able to be the way it's been in the past. And it takes a unique skill set to keep everybody together. And I picture that moment in June when we voted, or when we were about to adjourn, and everyone gave you a standing ovation. And although people in this room do not agree on every political view, you started every day on time, including today, which many of you didn't think were going to happen. You never called a bill after midnight, and you treated everyone in this chamber with respect. That lays the framework for what happened in that room over the last month. And I want to thank you. You have been a mentor. You have been a friend. You've allowed me to probably do things and expand beyond the normal role of a majority leader without frustration or questioning, because I think you know how I feel about you and the relationship that we have. To the governor, who I think is felt in this budget. Senate A and Senate B are merging, so to speak. And the governor has taken on difficult challenges throughout his career. He is not afraid to say what he feels. He's not afraid to call out things like the teacher pension issue, which is a huge liability looming. I want to offer my appreciation and respect to him for what he did. For nonpartisan and partisan staff, Senator Looney mentioned it last night, but I'd be remiss if I didn't tell the chamber. Neil Ayers, our head of OFA, lost his mother and father within about 2.5 weeks of each other during the middle of this in September and October. And that man came back after the death, I think it was his mother who passed subsequent to the father, with his laptop, with his numbers, with a smile on his face, and he is the epitome of a class act and professional civil servant, and we're lucky to have him in the state. To Matt Brockman and Maureen, the Speaker's staff, to Jamie Spallone for their support, to Ricky and to Franklin, to the press folks of Todd, Liz, and Larry, you really have helped us a lot. And so I will wrap with this. We all have to vote soon. And I stood up here last month and I pointed out the revenue similarities, and that sort of led us to look at a lot of the similarities in the budget. But there are differences in this budget versus the one that Senate A and Senate B of last month, and you have to weigh the scale. For some on this aisle, it's not enough for them. The scale weighs their mind too closely to that side. And there's some that I heard today on that side who think the scale weighs too much to this side. All I can say to the rest of us who may not feel that way and are prepared to vote yes is we unfortunately, and that's a fair word, we don't have alternatives. We right now have no budget, we have no revenue coming in, and we have a $3.5 billion deficit. Schools will close, libraries will close. I'm not saying this to scare people, it's true. How many people in this caucus or your caucus sent emails to their leadership saying, we're closing schools, we're merging classrooms, we're closing libraries? The effects were real. We had municipalities with a plural, on the verge of insolvency. There's a moral obligation up here to not allow that to happen. And it's happened to Democratic and Republican towns in the past, and we have always stepped up for them, no matter who was in charge in the governor's office or in the legislature. If we have no budget, we would strand $140 million in federal revenue. We would not have Care for Kids funded to the levels we have here. I mentioned ECS. There would be no tax break on Social Security for seniors next year. There would be no renters rebate checks. You know, that's the call I got the most of as an urban legislator, beyond the financial woes, was the renters rebate checks the governor couldn't issue because we had no budget. So look, this is tough. We're at the end of a journey. This budget offers needed reforms, but also some immediate comfort that is so needed by a lot of our residents in our towns. And I hope there's a lot of green lights on this board, because I think it will send a message. It will clearly illuminate across the state that in the darkest of days, I think for anyone up here, we found a way to pull through. It always wasn't pretty. We were oftentimes about ready to leave that room, but we found compromise. And every sticky situation, I'm looking at, at Vinny and Themis and Joe, Mr. Speaker, someone would bend just a little bit. We got to the end, and it looked like at any minute would it work out. And someone would look across the aisle because of those friendships, that respect, and just bend enough to keep the conversations going. This is not a miracle, but this is a product of a lot of goodwill and a real friendship. And every time I see any of the 8 people who sat in that room the rest of my life, I will only be able to think about one thing, and it will be a happy moment when I think about it. So it's time to vote. It's time to put our state on the right path forward. And I would also add one last thought. As we went on this course, undeterred by the taunts and the jeers from the sidelines and the critics, which we're all going to get, a few years from now, and I hope it's more, because it is October 26th, and I don't wish this on another legislature, something like this will happen again. We may all be gone. Maybe our kids, people talk about their kids and grandkids a lot in here. They will cite this legislature when they hit rock bottom, the way we sort of did this summer in September, when the screams got louder and louder, when parents with kids with intellectual and development disabilities called me and emailed me and said, "What are you doing? Where's the humanity in you people? Why can't you pass a budget?" And although it took a little longer than we thought, we summoned the courage to ignore the critics and to do it. And it's not a perfect product, and I'm not angry. I understand why you might vote no. I totally get and respect that. But in future years, they will look back and they will say, when all looks lost, when there is no hope, there were some brave people who stood together and defied the odds and passed a bipartisan budget when our state needed it the most. And I'm proud to be in that club. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, sir.